Good morning, everybody, as we continue our journey with Jesus through Holy Week and reflecting on some of the key events that took place. We're now moving into Thursday. This is the critical day. This is when the things happen. So many things happen that we could read and reflect upon. There is the Last Supper, which Jesus has to be a memorial for him. There's the betrayal of Judas. There's the denial by Peter. And there's Jesus' arrest and brought before the Sanhedrin. However, when I come to Thursday and think about Thursday, I always like to reflect upon and try and understand the agony of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Again, in prayer, imagine that you're there. Imagine the smells, the sounds, the interactions, and immerse yourself in it to get a flavour of what was going on. When you look at this passage, Gethsemane, it really can be difficult to comprehend the agony that Jesus was experiencing. I'm going to use a gospel reading from Mark again. It's chapter 14, verses 32 to 36, and it goes like this. They went to a place called Gethsemane, and Jesus said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." He took Peter, James, and John along with him, and he began to be deeply distressed and troubled. Jesus went on to say, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death." He said to them, "Stay here and keep watch." Going a little further, he fell to the ground and prayed that if possible, the hour might pass from him. Jesus said, "Abba, Father, everything is possible for you. Take this cup from me, yet not what I will, but what you will." So reflecting on that, what was Jesus' distress? I've used the NIV version like I've done in all my reflections. But if you look at other versions of the Bible, some of them use words like horror and anguish overwhelmed him. My heart is ready to break with grief. And Luke in his gospel, doctor by profession, says his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground. Was Jesus afraid of what was to come? We need to think of both natures of Jesus, human and God. And the word Jesus used to describe his coming ordeal, he referred to it as a cup from which he shrank in dread. So if we look at these two, the cup, Jesus' dread, was not physical pain and death of crucifixion, nor the mental anguish he was going to go through of everybody deserting him, even his closest disciples like Peter, who went on to deny even knowing him. No, we've got to look at his divine side. Jesus was horrified with dread because it was the spiritual horror he was going to experience of bearing the sins of the whole world. It makes sense when you look in the Old Testament, because in the Old Testament the cup is the regular symbol to use to represent God's wrath. So God was pouring all his wrath into Jesus, all the sin, all the rubbish. And I keep saying to you all to try and imagine the scene. I cannot get my head around what Jesus is about to do. He has taken all my sin, the dregs of my life, and he's taken all your sin, the dregs of your life. It's bad enough knowing our rubbish and only being able to move on with our small dregs that we've got because we've received forgiveness through Jesus. But imagine taking on everybody's personal sins, everybody's dregs that are spiritually mad or even destroyed their life from the beginning of time until he returns in glory, and to do it willingly. Not my will, but yours, in his prayer to his Father. That's giving the glimpse of the spiritual horror he's about to experience on the cross. Not the physical horror, the spiritual horror. For those who like the music of Stuart Townend, I would like to finish with his words from a song he wrote called "To See the King of Heaven Fall." I urge you to listen to this on YouTube as part of your reflection. And it goes something like this, and I stress I'm not going to sing it, I'm just going to say the words. To see the King of Heaven fall in anguish to his knees, the light and hope of all the world, now overwhelmed with grief. What nameless horrors must he see to cry out in the garden, "Oh, take this cup away from me, yet not my will but yours." To know each friend will fall away, and heaven's voice be still, for hell to have its vengeful day upon Golgotha's hill. No words can describe the Saviour's plight, to be by God forsaken, till wrath and love are satisfied, and every sin is paid, and every sin is paid. What took him to this wretched place? What kept him on this road? His love for Adam's cursed race, for every broken soul. No sin too light to overlook, no crime too great to carry, all mingled in this poisoned cup, and yet he drank it all. The Saviour drank it all. The Saviour drank it all. And from this spiritual agony in the garden, Jesus emerged, still to be determined to go to the cross. John didn't say much about the Garden of Gethsemane in his Gospel, but he did use this phrase. Jesus said, "Shall I not drink the cup that the Father has given to me?" How on earth do we respond to that? How can we respond to that? I'll leave that with you. God bless. Keep safe. And I'll see you tomorrow.